Hey everyone, I'm Adam. Welcome to Commander Tags. We're doing a Bloomburrow video doing a tier list for all the new commanders. So let's get into it. Our first commander today is Kitza the Bounding Spring. It's 2 and 2 white pips. It's an elemental elk and reads, when Kitza enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you, and create 2 1/1 fish. If an opponent controls more creatures than you, draw a card if an opponent has more cards than you. So I think the best way to play this would be kind of a group hug. If you're giving stuff to all your opponents, then you're going to be able to get the most value out of this. You'd have to be able to blink it, so you kind of a blink, group hug. I think it's an interesting deck. I don't think it's specifically very powerful, and being a mono white, I think that kind of limits it. So as far as a tier goes, I think this kind of fits more into a C tier. It's not garbage, but it's not great either. So that is Kitza. Moving on now. Alou the Shoreless Sea. It's 1 and 3 blue pips. Alou's power and toughness are equal to the number of swamps you control. When Alou enters or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. It's an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter on it. Ugh. The first instant sorcery spell you cast each turn costs 1 less blue pip, which is very interesting, very unique thing. First commander I think we have that does a reduction on colored mana. Or it can reduce 1 generic, less to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it. So there's lots of cards out there, lots of blue cards that will put flood counters on things. I'm thinking of a couple specifically. This is a very interesting commander. Maybe we do a theory craft on it. But just a couple of instant sorcery spells that come to mind are Amatao's Augury, which is 8. So if you have 5 flood counters, this is going to be 3. And a couple more is Beacon of Tomorrow, gives you an extra turn. Time Stretch gives you 2 extra turns. I've checked, this is legal in Commanders. Expropriate, which is 9 mana, and it's a very famous card in Commander, and normally just straight up wins you the game. So that is that one. So we're going to give this guy, he's pushing S. I think he's an A as of right now. That could change. But yeah, it's a very strong commander, especially for a single color. That's exactly what you're looking for. All right, next up is Kitza Otterball Elite. It's got Vigilance, Prowess. Prowess is good in blue. You can tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. So you get to rummage, great ability. Copy instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if Kitza's power is 3 or greater. This is a great commander. I think it does everything that blue wants to do. I think that it has a lot of value. I just don't think it's S tier. Okay, so that is that commander. Moving on. Maha, its Feathers Knight. It's 3 and 2 black pips. Flying, trample, ward, discard a card. Creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. This is this is an A tier commander. There's so many ways to do just 1 damage to all creatures. This reminds me a lot of the card that came out in Karlov Manor. It's the Massacre Girl from that set. You just play tribal removal is what you do, and nobody gets to play anything, and then you can find ways to win the game. Really strong, really salty commander. Not one that I'll be building, I'll tell you that, but still a really good commander. All right. Wick the World Mind. It's a new rat commander for 3 and a black pip, and it reads, whenever Wick or another rat you control enters, create a 1/1 black snail if you don't control a snail. Otherwise, put a 1/1 counter on a snail you do control. You can pay blue, black, red, sacrifice a snail. It deals damage equal to the creature's power to each opponent, then draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. So this one's really hard to peg. I think that there are a lot of interesting ideas out there, a lot of fun ideas. How powerful this is, I think it's really hard to say at this point, but I do see that at some point someone's going to figure this card out. I think that this is going to be really strong. I think this is an A-level commander. I have it on B. How did it get there? I think that's an A. So a lot of A's so far. Let's keep going. I think they did a really good job in Bloomburrow with their commander cards. I think they're all really interesting mechanics. I think they're fun ways to play. I think they're all pretty powerful too. Next up we have Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest. It's flying. Whenever it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. I think this is great. It gives you that impulse card draw, and then if you can't do something with it, it's still giving you value, which is hard to find. So I actually think this is a really good commander for red. I think this is another A. All right, moving on. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, Vigilance, Reach, Power, and Toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. When Lumra enters, mill 4 cards, then return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is a good commander. I don't think it's a great commander. I think this is going to be our first B tier commander. Actually, let's do C. I think it's C. I reserve the right to change this, but I mean, it's not doing anything all that unique. We've seen this before. It does let you bring all lands back, but it costs 6 mana. I don't think it's nearly as good as a lot of other stuff, a lot of other mono green commanders. All right, next up we have Elania. Divergent Storm is 3 blue and a red. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's a first instant spell, the first sorcerer spell, or the first otter spell, who cares about that? Other than Elania, you've cast this turn, you may have target opponent draw a card. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. So this allows you to copy a spell every turn. I think this is a really good Storm commander. I think this is a really good Spell Slinger commander. This is just a great commander overall. I've heard someone talk about this and say, oh, well, you can take extra turns repeatedly, which that's true. I don't think it's S tier though. I think this kind of falls on the A tier. I think it's really good, but I don't think it's S tier. All right, next up we have Balin the Haymaker, who is Naya. Tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card. Tap 4, and you get to put a 1/1 counter on this card against Trampoliner. See, you had me until it was putting it on this card. You can make this card really big, but really you're wanting to make your other stuff big. If you're making all these tokens, it's not Voltron. It's trying to do 2 different things. I think this is okay. So this is going to be a C. Man, I'm pretty hit or miss on these right now. All right. Okay, let's go on. Next up, Camellia the Seed Miser. Other squirrels you control have Menace. It has Menace. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 squirrel creature token. If you want to know more about this commander, check out my other video. You can forage, put a 1/1 counter on each other squirrel you control. I did a whole deep dive on how this commander, how you would build it, how it works. I think this is an awesome commander. I don't think it's S tier. I think it's A tier. All right. Next up, we've got Clement the Worrywart. 1, a green, and a blue. It says Vigilance. When Clement or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Frogs you control tap for either green or blue. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. So it's a frog tribal, which there's not enough support for, so that's a C. It's probably maybe even D. Well, we'll leave it at D right now. There's just not enough support. There's not enough frogs, guys. It's just doesn't do enough by itself. I think that you bounce stuff to your hand. There's not a lot of support for a blink deck. I don't know. I don't think it's very good. All right, next up we have Phineas, Ace, Archer, Vigilance, Reach. When Phineas attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. So this is the kind of thing you're looking for in a token deck. That's a token of rabbit. Then if it's creatures you control have power 10 or greater, draw a card. I think it's a great card, probably better in a 99 token deck. I think this is a B. This will be our first B. Just doesn't do enough. All right, Gev, Scaled Scorch Ward, pay 2 life. Other creatures you control enter with an additional 1/1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. So I guess you would be doing a everybody takes 1 damage, so an aristocrat kind of thing. It's only 1 additional, so I mean, Whenever you cast a lizard spell, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. Not enough support for lizards. I don't think it's that good. I think I put it here in the C tier. All right, moving on. Gulbard Calamity's Augur. Black, green, blue. It's a frog wizard noble with death touch. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast spells with mana values 4 or greater from the top of your library. You can tap it and surveil too. I have a whole video series on this guy. If you want to know more about him, go check those out. They're long videos, long form videos, but the gist of it is this is a great card. So we are going to go ahead. This is going to be a A-tier commander as well. A lot of A's. Getting crowded up there, guys. All right, Helga's Skiddish Sear. It's in Bant. It's a frog druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card. Gain 1 life and put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then you can tap it, add X mana of any one color, where X is this creature's power. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana cost. So the X there kind of tips you off that this could be used to cast some big green hydras, which could be really good. I think this is a potential sleeper, and I think that this is a B-level commander right now. I think there's a lot of hydras and things like that in green, but really you want to be in Gruul, so unfortunately it's only a B-level commander right now. As they add more support, you know, maybe if they made some more X spells in white or blue. I mean, there are some blue stuff. I mean, they're spells. They're not creatures, though. This has to be creatures, right? Creature spells, yeah. So, not bad. Hugs, Gly Garden. This is trash. This is something you put in the 99. You would never build this as a commander. A fun creature, Badger Warrior. Love the art. Love everything about it, except it's not a commander. I'm not even bother reading it. You want to read it, go pause the video. D. All right, moving on. Here we go. The infamous Cruel Claw. 1 and Rakdos. It's a Weasel Mercenary Menace. Or Menace. Whenever the infamous Cruel Claw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library till you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. Not only does this have CEDH implications as a casual commander player, I still think this is our first S. This is an S tier. This is all day long. This is S. This card is awesome. I love this. Rakdos is a great color combo, and what this does, I think it's going to be really good. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video about this next week. So check out my videos. Please subscribe, like, go ahead and do that now, and comment on what you think about this list as we continue on here. Moving on. So our next commander is Castrol, the Wind Crested. It is 3, a white and a blue. So this is a bird scout. Whenever 1 or more birds you control deal combat damage to a player, choose 1. You may put a bird creature card from your hand or graveyard on the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Put a 1/1 counter on each bird you control, or draw a card. So this is going to surprise you. There is actually support here. Birds are not new to Bloomburrow, so there's lots of cards to choose from, and I think there's a lot of really powerful birds. I think there's a couple new ones in Bloomburrow, and I think this is one of the better bird commanders that we've seen, that we have in Magic. So this, I'm not going to give it an S, obviously. It's still birds, but this is an A. All right. Next. So now we've got Mabel, Heir to Cragflame. It's 1 and Boros. Other mice you control get +1/+1. When it enters, you create a legendary colorless equipment artifact token with equipped creature gets +1/+1, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, and equip 2. This is an awesome standard card. This is not a good commander. I don't think there's enough support for mice. I don't think that this is good enough. I think that in standard, I've seen the mouse deck go off. I think it's awesome, but this is just nah. It's not a great commander card. D. Next up, we've got Mell Trash Tactician. 1 and Gruul. It's a raccoon warrior. At the beginning of your first main phase, you add red or green for each raccoon you control. There's not a lot of raccoon support, except for Bloomburrow. You're probably not going to get a lot of mana off of this. When you expend 4, expends a new mechanic, you gain 3 life. Whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your turn. You may play those cards. So expend is when you spend that total in mana. 8's quite a bit. 4 is pretty easy. I like this commander. I do. I think it's fun. I think it'd be interesting to build around. I just don't think it's particularly powerful. So I'm going to give it a C. Next up, Ven the Restless. It's got Ward 2 and Demir, and it's a rat commander. Enough said. This is an S. This is an S, but let's go ahead and continue reading anyways. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of each end step, create X/1/1 rat creature tokens. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. So this is like a crime deck. This is going to be, you're going to exile all your opponent's stuff as much as you can. You're going to create as many X's, get this X up as high as you can go, and then putting 1/1 counters on them as much as possible. I think this is an awesome card. I think this is going to get built all over the place, and this is an S tier. Next, we've got Yar Eater of All. It's 3, a black and a green. It's an elemental cat. Looks like a panther. Ward is sack a food, which is interesting, but if you keep reading, other creatures are food artifacts in addition to their other types. Crazy ability. Crazy. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard, you put 2 1/1 counters on Yar Eater of All. I think making all of your opponent's food, this is stupid strong. I don't know that it's S. I'm gonna put it in S. I think there's tons of infinite combos. I think you can win straight up with this. It's in good color combination, and even if you just want it as a casual commander, I think it's good. All right. What do we have now? Zorine Cosmos Color. 1 and Orzhov. It's a bat cleric, flying vigilance. Whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain 1 life. Whenever Zorine enters or attacks, you may pay Orzhov and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with a mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Anyways, this is interesting, fun, not particularly good. Enough said. Not that many bats. Put it at B just because it's Orzhov. Orzhov is just going to be strong no matter what you do. I mean, it's a extremely strong color combination. There are a few bats. I think that there's not enough for a tribal deck per se, but it's still a good deck. All right, Bria, Riptide Rogue, prowess. Other creatures you control have prowess. I think this is awesome. I think that you're wanting to do this, and is it? Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creatures you control can't be blocked this turn. What's awesome about this is prowess is the thing you're trying to balance a lot of times in a spell slinger deck, is that you're trying to get creatures and cards that do other stuff, and then you got to have enough power. This just makes it so that you can focus on everything else. Like, all your creatures have prowess. I have a dive on this. If you're interested, go check that video out. But this is an S. This is an S. That's probably debatable. I think it's an S. Next up, we have Burke, Long Ear of the Law. It's 6. It's already too expensive. Vigilance. When it enters, put a 1/1 counter on each of 2 creatures. Nope. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter attacks, double the number of 1 counters. That part's really good. This sucks. That's it. This is garbage. Sorry. 6 for that. No. I get it. You're in green. It's just not worth it. There's better stuff. Period. All right. Now we move on to Bellow, Bard of the Brambles. I love the names on these cards. This one's great. 1 in Gruul. It's a raccoon barb. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact, non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types and has indestructible haste. This is so fun. Whenever this creature deals count damage to a player, draws a card. This is so much fun. I think that you could put just big, beefy artifacts in here and different stuff. I think this is a great one to allow you to be creative. I think this is a fun build. There's lots of different ways to do it. However, I think it's just kind of middle of the road. I actually think it's a B level commander. All right. Hazel the Root Bloom. This is S. This is S all day long. 2 and black green. You can tap it, add 2 life, pay 2 life, tap X, untap tokens you control, add X mana in any combination of colors. That's good enough. But at the beginning of your end step, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. If that token is a squirrel, instead you create 2 tokens that are a copy of it. this is by far one of the better cards that commanders, Squirrel commander. Squirrel is my favorite tribe, in this set. I think that this is an S commander all day. All right. What do we got now? Ms. Bumbleflower. 1 and Bant. Rabbit Citizen. Vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell, a target opponent draws a card. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It gains flying until end of turn. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. This, for Bant, is a group hug deck, and Bant for group hug works really well, and I love that you're giving 2 cards, 1 to each of your opponents, but then you get 2 cards on your own. So you're getting a lot more benefit. It's got the group hug thing working just on the card itself. I think this is one of the best group hug commanders you could probably run, and in the right color combination, I'm actually giving this an S. I might be wrong, but this is an S tier group hug commander in my opinion. All right, next up we have Zenia Valley's Voice. Flying. It gets +X, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1. Creature spells you can cast have offspring. This is very interesting and fun. It's in Jeskai. I think it's C. It's not very strong, just giving one creature a bunch of power. Jeskai is really weak. I really wish they would do better commanders for Jeskai. I think that Jeskai really needs a lot stronger commanders than what it currently has got. Next up, Arthur Marigold Knight. 2 and blue, red, white. Whenever Arthur Marigold Knight, at least one other creature attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat. So it forces it bounce to your hand. So you get to look through the top 6 cards, get something, have it attack, and then bounce back to your hand. It's okay. Okay, not great. Yeah, just okay. I actually put it above Zenia. I think they're the same color, are they not? This is just, yeah, same color combination, red, white, and blue. So, yeah, for America's colors, we got some of the worst commanders. Outside of the obvious, right? Outside of Narset. That's it. Okay. So what do we got now? We got Mr. Foxglove. 2 and Bant, Fox Rogue, lifelink. Whenever Mr. Foxglove attacks, draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. So if you have 3 cards, they have 4, then you draw 1. If you didn't draw cards this way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. I think that this is actually really good. So either you have more cards than your opponents, you're drawing a lot of stuff, and then you're getting to play something for free, or you play a whole bunch of stuff out, and then you're going to draw a bunch of cards, right? Or is it just one card, or was it multiple? No, it's multiple. You would draw multiple cards. This is an awesome card. I actually think this might even be S tier. We'll put it at A, but I don't know. That seems really good. I might have to do a deck tech on that guy. That's a sweet card. I love Bant. Bant's one of my favorite colors. Next up, the Odd Acorn Gang. Menace, Trample, Reach. This is the alternate commander for Camellia. Actually, not Camellia. What is it? I don't remember what that. I think it's Root Bloom. This is a Root Bloom alternate commander. So that's that precon. 3 and black green. It's a Squirrel Warrior. Menace, Trample, Reach. Squirrels you control have tap. Target Squirrel gets +2/+2. Engage Trample until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Get a bunch of squirrels out. Then you get to swing with 1 giant squirrel. I think that's pretty cool. Whenever 1 or more squirrels you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, which is going to be easy to do. This is a great card. This is an awesome card. I don't know that it's a great commander. I think it's so hard because there were so many great. There's already Chatterfang. There's the new Camellia. There's the Root Bloom. Like this, I think gets outclassed a little bit, but I actually think this is still really good. I think this is maybe I underestimated it on the initial look. I think that's an A level commander. Lots of A's, guys. I think that there's a lot of really good commanders in this set. Next up, Wild Sea Scouring Maw. 3 in Gruul, it's an elemental wolf. You got an elemental creature for each color combination almost. Enchantment spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. Trample 6/6. So it's a 6/6 for 5, which is a good static creature. Having Cascade on your enchantments, I think this is kind of forces you into building an enchantment deck in Gruul, which I don't know that there's a ton of support for. There are a lot of good enchantments. I think that this could actually be really strong in a casual setting. I think it just kind of depends on what what enchantments there are out there. Nothing really comes to mind. I'm gonna put this as a B. It could be an A, but I think it's a B. And same thing. So I already know Flubs is going to be a B. So we'll talk about Flubs here. Flubs is the Fool. He is green, blue, red. He's a Frog Scout. You may play an additional land on your turns whenever you play a land. Cast a spell. Draw a card if you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, discard a card. So this requires you to do some really deep strategy and thinking and like working around the fact that he's forcing you to discard your hand. A card that comes to mind is Loot, the Key to Everything. So you can actually, based on the number of card types that you control, you exile that many cards at the top of your library at your upkeep, and you get to play those cards. So it's a way around the fact that you're discarding your hand. So those are the kind of things you have to do to make this commander work. However, I think he's a lot of fun and really interesting and could be really strong in the right situation. So I give him a B. And so here's my tier list, guys. This is kind of what I think. We got a pretty even distribution with most cards falling into A. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 S level tier commanders. This one, Cruel Claw, I think is probably the best out of all of these. I'm really excited to do a video on him next week. Thanks for taking the time to check this out. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit up the comment section of the video. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Like and subscribe.